Something we all navigate, something fundamentally human, is grief. Yet, even though it's, well, a shared experience, it often feels really isolating, like we're all speaking a different language sometimes. Today, we're diving deep into this very idea, what the YouTube channel Queen so aptly calls the language of grief.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because we're often presented with these neat step-by-step guides to grieving.
Right, like a checklist.
Exactly. Almost as if there's a set path you follow and then eventually you're just done. But the truth, as we'll explore using this video as our guide, is that grief is so much more intricate, really messy.
Yeah.
Our aim in this deep dive is to move beyond that, overly simple notion of recovery and really unpack its multifaceted nature for you.
Exactly. And to get there, we're going to explore grief through several key dimensions. We'll look at how it shows up in your body.
The physical side, yeah.
The tumultuous landscape of emotions it brings and how it reshapes our social world. But we'll also touch on the shifts in thinking it triggers, how it's experienced differently throughout life, the huge influence of culture, and even its spiritual aspects.
And it's striking that the video kicks off by presenting this seemingly paradoxical idea, grief as a privilege.
Right. It makes you stop and think.
It really does. Reconsider what we think we know about it.
Yeah, the video suggests that we can only grieve when we have something to lose. And what a beautiful thing it is to find something to lose. It completely reframes grief, doesn't it?
It does.
Reminding you of the depth of connection that came before the pain. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with something really tangible. The physical landscape of grief, the way loss actually registers in your body.
What's particularly interesting here, I think, is that grief often makes its presence known physically, sometimes even before you fully comprehend the emotional weight of what's happened.
Your body just reacts.
Your body truly does respond to loss in profound ways.
Yeah. Think about that tightening in your chest, that shortness of breath maybe. It's more than just a metaphor when we talk about a broken heart.
Definitely not.
The video even mentions Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. It's a real physical weakening of the heart muscle, triggered by extreme emotional distress. It really highlights that mind-body connection, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And if we dig into why that might happen, well, the evidence suggests that this overwhelming surge of stress hormones, during intense emotional distress can temporarily stun the heart muscle.
Wow.
It isn't just a feeling, it's a physiological response. And it's worth remembering this connection isn't some modern discovery either. The ancient Greeks had the concept of thymos.
Thymos, right?
Which they believed was the physical seat of emotions right there in your chest. That feeling of constriction, it's been part of how we understand emotion for centuries.
And then there's sleep, something so fundamental that grief just completely throws into chaos for so many people.
Oh yeah, sleep is huge.
The video talks about these opposite extremes, either feeling this overwhelming urge to sleep excessively, almost like retreating,
I'm being awake,
or the complete opposite, insomnia, lying awake with those cyclical memories of the loss, just replaying and replaying. It's such a cruel paradox, isn't it? When your body and mind desperately need rest, it feels completely out of reach.
It is. And that moment of waking up,
Yeah.
that split second of maybe forgetting before the reality crashes down again.
Oh, brutal.
It's often described as experiencing the initial pain anew each time consciousness returns. And beyond just the disruption, the quality of sleep is often terrible, which just compounds the physical toll grief takes.
And our relationship with food changes so drastically too. I mean, suddenly things can lose all their flavor, become, as the video says, like ash in your mouth.
Food is ash, yeah.
Even the simplest meal can feel like this monumental effort. But then for others, it's this insatiable hunger, this craving for comfort food that, well, never quite satisfies.
Comfort eating.
The video notes how this can lead to really significant weight fluctuations, adding another layer of physical stress.
And what's fascinating, connecting this to the bigger picture, is the impact grief has on your immune system. The video mentions increased inflammation, reduced immune function.
Makes you more susceptible to illness.
Exactly. It's almost as if your body's defenses are lowered when it's dealing with such profound internal turmoil. If we think about the concept of allostatic load.
Allostatic load.
Yeah, basically, grief creates this chronic stress response that really drains your body at a cellular level. Simple, everyday tasks can suddenly feel like enormous mountains to climb because your energy reserves are gone, depleted.
It really brings home that old idea of people dying of grief, doesn't it? I mean, obviously we understand the mechanisms better now.
But the video does point out that prolonged, severe grief can indeed contribute to a cardiovascular problem, an increased risk of mortality, especially in those early months after a significant loss. Your body is under immense strain.
And that exhaustion, that overwhelming fatigue that so many people experiencing grief describe, it's not just being tired, is it?
No, it's this deep, pervasive weariness that goes way beyond needing a good night's sleep. It's that allostatic load we mentioned, the cumulative effect of chronic stress, just wearing down your physical system.
Even pain itself seems amplified.
Yeah.
Headaches that won't quit, persistent backaches, maybe digestive issues flaring up, that general muscle tension you carry around.
Yeah, it's like your nervous system is already on overload with the emotional processing, and then it becomes hypersensitive to any physical discomfort. Things that might have been minor annoyances before can become almost unbearable.
And then there are these really peculiar sensory shifts the video touches on, this sort of paradox, intensification, and dulling of the senses.
Like, you might find yourself incredibly sensitive to loud noises, just overwhelmed by sounds that didn't bother you before, but at the same time feel strangely disconnected, like you're experiencing the world through a pane of glass slightly removed.
Or that powerful example of being intensely overwhelmed by a familiar scent. Maybe a loved one's perfume suddenly triggering a wave of emotion.
Huge waves, yeah.
While food tastes like absolutely nothing, it's as if your senses themselves are in mourning, sort of selectively responding to the world.
And what's insightful here is how these physical manifestations are so often reflected in traditional grief rituals across cultures. You know, the wailing, the rocking back and forth,
Tearing clothes, shaving heads.
the practices of fasting or maybe elaborate feasting, keeping vigils. These aren't just symbolic gestures. They are physical expressions of profound inner pain, ways for the body to participate in grief.
Absolutely. It's like the body has its own language of grief, a need to physically express what words often can't capture.
Exactly.
And it's encouraging to see that modern grief counseling is increasingly recognizing this, incorporating somatic practices, movement, breath work, massage to address grief's physical roots, acknowledging that healing needs to happen on a bodily level too.
Because ultimately, as the video suggests, your body, when you're grieving, it becomes a different place to inhabit. Supporting someone grieving means recognizing these very real physical needs. The need for extra rest, for nourishing food, even when appetite is low, for gentle touch if it's wanted, and just patience. Patience with a body that isn't functioning as it used to.
And while those acute physical symptoms do tend to moderate over time for most people, it's important to remember they can resurface, unexpectedly during anniversaries or when triggered by sensory reminders.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's the physical landscape. Now let's delve into what the video calls navigating grief's inner landscape, that often turbulent emotional terrain you find yourself in.
Right. And this is where we really need to move away from that simplistic, linear, stage-based model of grief you sometimes hear about.
The Kubler-Ross model and things like that.
Exactly. The emotional experience is far more fluid, much more complex, and honestly at times can feel utterly chaotic. Contradictory feelings often pop up simultaneously.
That initial shock, that numbness, the video describes it as this almost built-in protective mechanism.
Yeah, like insulation.
Like your mind's way of gradually absorbing what's happened, preventing you from being completely overwhelmed right away. It can create this surreal feeling, like you're observing your own life from a distance, maybe.
And that numbness, as unsettling as it can feel, actually serves a vital purpose in those early days. It allows you to handle the immediate practical necessities, funeral arrangements, legal stuff, telling people before the full weight of emotion crashes down.
And when that numbness does begin to recede, whoosh. It's not just one emotion taking its place, is it? It's often a whole storm crashing in. Sorrow, of course.
Deep sorrow.
Which the video beautifully describes as sometimes a gentle rain, a persistent undercurrent, and other times a destructive flood that threatens to just engulf you.
That feeling of being utterly oceanic or falling endlessly with nothing to hold on to.
Yeah, and those unpredictable tears that can just well up and spill over at any moment, seemingly without reason.
Those tears are such a powerful physical manifestation of that sorrow, aren't they? Your body's way of expressing an emotional pain words often can't capture. But alongside that profound sadness, there's often anger.
Oh yeah, anger is huge.
Which is another fundamental and very human response to loss.
And that anger can be directed in so many different ways, can't it? At obvious targets, perhaps, or even at the person who died. That raw, how could you leave me feeling.
Absolutely.
But also directed inward at yourself, that relentless, I should have noticed sooner, or I should have done something.
Or even at something much bigger, like God or the universe, or just the perceived unfairness of the world. It's a multifaceted anger.
It is. And as the video points out, that anger is so often deeply tangled up with guilt.
Oh, the guilt.
That endless replaying of what ifs and the impossible act of bargaining with some imagined power to somehow reverse what happened.
Yeah.
That internal loop of if only I had can become incredibly consuming.
It really can. Then there's fear. The video talks about how loss can shatter that fundamental illusion of security we often operate within.
Like the rug being pulled out.
Exactly. Suddenly revealing the inherent uncertainty of life. The world can start to feel more dangerous, more unpredictable, leading to heightened anxiety, a state of hypervigilance, even catastrophic thinking, and a sense of existential dread. It's like the foundations of your world have been shaken.
And then there's loneliness. That persistent and often profound feeling of being utterly alone in your pain, even when you're surrounded by people who care.
It's a unique kind of loneliness.
The video highlights how this can intensify when people, maybe with good intentions, avoid the grieving person or try to rush them to move on.
Oh, the move on comments, yeah.
It can feel like you're on an island of unique suffering that nobody else can possibly understand.
But it's not all these heavy, difficult emotions, is it? The video also touches on these unexpected, sometimes surprising emotional features, like relief.
Relief. That sounds counterintuitive.
It can be, especially in situations where someone has suffered for a long time, maybe a prolonged illness. And then comes that complicated guilt that can sometimes accompany that relief.
Right. Questioning your own feelings. Am I a bad person for feeling this?
It's so important to understand that relief can absolutely coexist with genuine sorrow and love, and then those fleeting moments of joy. Maybe a memory that brings a smile, or a moment of beauty that catches your eye.
Those can bring guilt too, can't they? Like you shouldn't be feeling okay.
They can, but as the video reminds us, they are natural clearings in that dense forest of pain, signs that life in some way continues.
And the development of gratitude, that unexpected appreciation for what was, for the love you shared, for the kindness and support you received during such a difficult time.
For the very fact of having loved so deep.
Yeah, it doesn't erase the sorrow, obviously, but it adds another layer to your emotional experience, a testament to the enduring power of connection.
And over time, this inner emotional terrain does gradually shift. It's not a linear progression towards some definitive resolution, but more of a gradual and often messy transformation towards what's sometimes called integrated
grief. So the pain doesn't necessarily disappear.
No, the pain remains a part of you, but it becomes incorporated into the fabric of your life. It doesn't dominate your every moment completely. The intensity of those overwhelming emotions becomes less frequent, less all-consuming.
So it's not about forgetting or achieving some elusive closure, but about developing a greater capacity to carry that grief with you while still being able to engage with life, find moments of joy and meaning again.
Exactly. It's like that deep wound that's still tender, but no longer prevents you from moving forward.
Okay, so we've explored the physical and the emotional landscapes. Now let's consider the social landscape of grief, how loss reshapes your connections with the world around you.
This is such a crucial aspect because, as the video emphasizes, grief, even though it's profoundly personal, always unfolds within a social context. And that context profoundly shapes how you experience and express your loss and how others respond to you.
And it really does reveal the true nature of your relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Some bonds can deepen in unexpected ways, become a real source of strength.
Absolutely.
While others, sadly, can fracture under the strain. You might find unexpected support from acquaintances, even strangers, while people you counted on seem to disappear.
The video calls these secondary loss and unexpected gain, and they require their own difficult adjustments as you navigate this new social terrain.
Communication often becomes so strained too, doesn't it? Those awkward silences that hang in the air.
Painful silence.
The well-intentioned but ultimately painful platitudes people offer, often out of their own discomfort.
Oh, the classics. Everything happens for a reason.
Or, they're in a better place now.
Comments that, while maybe meant to comfort, can often leave you feeling even more isolated and profoundly misunderstood. It really highlights the difficulty many people have in just being with someone's pain, knowing what to say, or maybe more importantly, what not to say.
And then there's that phenomenon the video so poignantly calls the grief ghost.
The grief ghost, yeah.
That isolating sense that others no longer truly see you as a whole person, but just this spectral representation of your loss. Your identity can temporarily become reduced to the widow or the bereaved parent.
It creates this deep longing to be seen for who you still are, someone who happens to be navigating grief rather than being solely defined by it.
And cultural expectations play such a significant role here in shaping this social landscape. Different societies have vastly different norms around how grief should be expressed, right?
Absolutely. The acceptable length of mourning periods, how the bereaved should behave publicly, from, demonstrative wailing and outward displays of sorrow in some cultures to a more reserved, stoic, private suffering in others. These norms heavily influence your experience.
And the video touches on the often contradictory attitudes in modern Western society. Like, we can sometimes sensationalize public mourning, a celebrity death, for instance,
Huge outpourings.
but have very little tolerance or understanding for the ongoing everyday grief in our own lives and communities. There's often this underlying pressure to demonstrate a quick return to normal,
Especially in professional setting. Get back to work, be productive.
which brings up that complex, sometimes controversial inclusion of prolonged grief disorder in the American Medical Association's diagnostic manuals.
Right. It really highlights this tension within our society, doesn't it? Between acknowledging that grief can indeed last for a long time and the potential for pathologizing what might be a perfectly natural and appropriate response to profound loss. It's a really delicate balance.
And then digital technology has completely reshaped the social landscape of grief for so many. Online memorials, grief forums.
They offer incredible opportunities for connection, finding support from others who truly understand.
But they also create new pressures, don't they? Like the expectation of a public performance of grief or the constant risk of encountering triggering reminders as you just scroll through your feed.
And the availability and quality of grief support systems can vary so widely, depending on where you live, your socioeconomic status, your existing social network. It creates real inequities in who receives adequate support.
Some communities have robust resources, networks of care, while others offer very little structured support.
So ultimately, the video emphasizes the critical need for society, for all of us really, to create more compassionate and understanding spaces for grief to unfold and be integrated, rather than pushing for this often unrealistic, premature resolution.
Communities that allow for authentic emotional expression, offer long-term practical support, and simply acknowledge the profound impact of loss can make an enormous difference.
And the most genuinely helpful responses often come down to the simplest acts, don't they? Just being present with someone.
Walking alongside them without trying to fix things or offer easy solutions.
Tolerating the intensity of their emotions without judgment. Actively remembering and acknowledging the person died.
And recognizing grief as a profound, deeply human experience that needs to be witnessed with empathy and compassion.
Exact. Now, let's shift our focus a bit to the cognitive dimension, how grief actually transforms the way you think and process.
It's truly fascinating how grief isn't just a matter of feelings. It fundamentally alters your thought processes, your belief systems, even how you perceive reality. The video touches on how profound loss can essentially rewire the way your brain functions, at least temporarily.
Memory, for example. It often undergoes these dramatic, sometimes unsettling shifts. In the early stages, you might experience a sense of dissociation from memories right around the loss itself.
Like a protective barrier.
Almost, yeah. But at the same time, very vivid, almost hyper-real, yet often selective memories of the person who died can surface unexpected, often triggered by a sensory cue, a song, a smell, a place.
That sudden sound of their laughter in your mind, or a scent that instantly brings them back. It can be both comforting, like a fleeting connection, and also intensely painful, a stark reminder of their absence.
Definitely. And then there's what's often called grief brain.
Grief brain. So many people talk about this.
That frustrating, often debilitating, diminished concentration, the persistent difficulty focusing on even simple tasks, forgetfulness that seems totally out of character, and a general struggle with executive functions like planning and organization.
That cognitive impairment you might experience. Is it just exhaustion?
It's partly attributable to the sheer cognitive load of processing grief. Your mind is working incredibly hard to try and make sense of a reality that's been fundamentally altered, that leaves fewer mental resources for everyday thinking and tasks. And then there's the peculiar way grief can distort your perception of time.
Oh, absolutely. The present can feel like it's stretching on endlessly, each moment heavy and slow.
But also oddly unreal, like you're moving through a dream.
Yeah. And the future can become this foggy, unimaginable void because the person who was such an integral part of it is gone. The past often gets divided into this stark before and after.
And you can feel inexplicably stuck, can't you? Unable to fully move forward, but no longer fully present in the past either.
Even making seemingly minor decisions can become incredibly difficult, requiring an almost exhausting amount of mental energy.
And major life decisions often get postponed, or sometimes made impulsively as a maybe misguided attempt to escape the overwhelming pain. The video also touches on how particularly vulnerable people can be to making poor financial decisions during acute grief.
Because judgment is just impaired.
Exactly. Your ability to think clearly is compromised.
And language itself, something we rely on so heavily, it can suddenly feel utterly inadequate.
Finding the right words becomes this huge, frustrating struggle.
Ordinary vocabulary just doesn't seem to capture the enormity of it, which is why I think poetry, metaphor, art often become such vital outlets for expressing grief when words fail.
You might even experience difficulty with basic word retrieval, that frustrating feeling of knowing the words you want but being unable to access it or struggling to form coherent sentences. It really underscores how deeply grief impacts our fundamental cognitive process.
And then there's the profound, often unsettling critical examination of your core belief systems.
Yeah, this is huge. Religious frameworks that once provided unwavering comfort might suddenly feel hollow, or for some, they might be embraced with renewed, even more fervent intent.
But those fundamental assumptions you held about fairness, predictability, the way the world works, they often shatter in the face of significant loss, don't they?
Completely, requiring you to grapple with rebuilding a new understanding of existence that can somehow accommodate this devastating reality.
And that leads to what the video aptly terms narrative rupture.
Narrative rupture, that profound disruption to your sense of self and the story of your life. The story you once told yourself suddenly feels incoherent. There's this urgent, often painful question, who am I now?
When a central relationship or identity has been irrevocably altered.
It requires a long, often arduous process of constructing a new narrative that somehow integrates the loss into the ongoing story of your life.
And, as the video rightly emphasizes, all of this intense cognitive processing demands an enormous amount of mental energy, which explains why people grieving often need so much time and space to gradually return to previous levels of cognitive functioning.
It's like your brain is constantly running this really intensive, energy-draining background program, just trying to process and integrate the loss.
And cognitive recovery. It might not mean returning to exactly how you thought before, right?
Not necessarily. It often involves developing these new cognitive frameworks that incorporate the enduring reality of your loss. And, as the video suggests, this challenging process can sometimes lead to unexpected outcomes, enhanced cognitive depth, maybe a more nuanced, compassionate understanding of life's complexity.
In a clear, more profound sense of what truly holds meaning and value for you.
It's one of grief's more paradoxical, often unseen transformation. Now, let's turn our attention to how grief manifests differently across the various stages of your lifespan.
It's so crucial to understand that grief isn't a uniform experience. How you grieve is profoundly shaped by your developmental state, influencing everything from how you express emotions and understand loss to the coping mechanisms you use and the support you seek.
What a child experiences is vastly different from an older adult. Absolutely.
Children's grief, as the video points out, often surprises adults who might underestimate their feelings or misunderstand how they express them.
Even very young children experience grief, but they process it through the lens of their developing understanding. Preschoolers still developing their concept of permanence.
They might keep asking when the person is coming back.
Exactly. Not necessarily denial, but reflecting their cognitive stage, their struggle to grasp finality.
And they often express grief through behavior, maybe regression, separation anxiety, sleep issues, or through their play, trying to process it symbolically.
The video also mentions how their grief can seem intermittent, moving in and out of sadness. Adults can mistakenly see that as them not feeling.
When really it's more like self-protection.
Exactly. Their limited capacity for sustained emotional process. They need breaks from overwhelming feelings they can't yet regulate continuously. School-aged children, with a more concrete understanding of death as final, they might still engage in magical thinking.
Believing they somehow caused it or could have prevented it.
Right. Or maybe reverse it. Their questions become more direct, often focusing on physical details, which can seem morbid to adults, but is their way of making cognitive sense of it.
And they worry about caregiving too, right? Who will look after them now?
That's a big one. Manifesting as anxiety, school problems, physical complaints.
Adolescents, on the other hand, often grieve with a particular intensity.
It can be challenging. They have an adult-like understanding of loss, but still immature emotional regulation, leading to intense grief reactions, maybe risk-taking, irritability, identity confusion, intense anger.
Easily misattributed to just being a teenager.
Right, rather than grief. And that crucial developmental task of separating from parents becomes incredibly complicated by a death. They might oscillate between needing comfort and pushing away support.
Peer relationships are vital then, but friends often lack the skills to help, right?
Exactly. Which can lead to them feeling even more isolated within their own peer group, marked as different.
Young adults face their own unique challenge, losing someone during those transitional years, college, starting careers.
It creates a complex interplay of practical complications alongside the emotional pain. They might feel pressured to postpone grief processing due to demands, potentially leading to delayed or complicated grief later.
And the video points out, society often minimizes their grief, especially if it's not a spouse or immediate family. You're young, you'll find someone else.
So invalidating, dismissing the significance of their loss. These losses can also deeply challenge their developing sense of invulnerability.
Midlife adults often find themselves in a complex spot navigating their own grief and maybe supporting grieving children or aging parents.
Their grief can get intertwined with life review, awareness of their own mortality. Losing a partner at this stage often involves a significant reconstruction of identity across multiple roles.
And older adults.
Yeah.
Sadly, they often encounter really problematic societal attitudes. Losing a long-term partner might be dismissed as expected or even a blessing after illness.
Which completely invalidates the profound loss of shared history, companionship, and intertwined life.
They're also often dealing with multiple concurrent losses. Health, independence, friends dying.
Which can significantly complicate their grief. While they may have resilience from past losses, their resources might also be more limited.
The video makes a really insightful point about how unresolved childhood grief can resurface during adult losses,
underscoring the long-term impact and the importance of addressing grief at all ages.
and providing support across these stages. It's about finding that balance, isn't it? Honoring the grief while fostering continued engagement with life, adapted to their developmental needs.
For children, honest, age-appropriate explanations, consistent routine. For adolescents, respecting intensity, offering peer and private processing options. For young adults, acknowledging the grief's legitimacy, practical support. For midlife older adults, opportunities to tell stories, validating the loss's significance.
Okay, now let's turn our attention to the diverse cultural dimensions of grief and mourning.
This is where you see such a rich, fascinating tapestry of human experience. The ways grief is expressed and rituals are practiced vary so dramatically across cultures, highlighting how culture profoundly shapes our experience.
Absolutely. Consider the Orthodox Jewish tradition of Shiva, that structured 7-day mourning period at home.
Specific rituals, strong community support, visitors waiting for the mourner to initiate conversation. It provides a clear, supportive framework.
Or the diverse traditions within various Native American cultures' ceremonies addressing the deceased's journey, giving away possessions, spirit song, community support, connection with ancestors.
Really highlights a different understanding of the living and the dead. And then there are the extended funeral ceremonies in many African traditions, sometimes lasting days or weeks.
Often incorporating singing, drumming, dancing, storytelling.
And the practice of professional mourners in some cultures underscores the communal nature of grief, the importance of collective expression.
Contrasting these, Eastern traditions, like Buddhism, often emphasize impermanence, the cyclical nature of existence.
Funeral practices might include silent meditation on mortality, symbolic representations like sand mandalas, contextualizing individual grief within a larger spiritual understanding.
And in contemporary Western societies, we've seen a shift towards more individualized psychological approaches, counseling, therapy often taking precedence over communal rituals.
Reflecting individualism and a more medicalized view of emotional distress.
And digital technology has brought entirely new forms of grief expression, online memorials, social media mourning.
These spaces are still developing norms, etiquette. We see potential for connection, but also new challenges, potential for conflict.
It's also critical to acknowledge the influence of economic factors, funeral costs, time off work.
Creates very real burdens and significant inequities in how to mourn.
And cultural differences in emotional expression norms can lead to misunderstanding, restraint versus expressiveness.
What's appropriate in one context might be misinterpreted in another. Similarly, gender expectations, while evolving, still shape how men and women are often expected to grieve.
Religious frameworks provide specific narrative, resurrection, submission, reincarnation cycles, shaping understanding, offering comfort, but sometimes also constricting grief.
And the way societies acknowledge different types of losses, untimely versus expected death, spousal versus other relationships, reveals implicit hierarchies of grief legitimacy. Disenfranchised grief highlights losses lacking social recognition.
Despite all these variations, it's striking to see the cross-cultural commonalities.
The fundamental human need to honor the deceased, memorialize them, find community support, mark time passages, find ways to carry memory forward while re-engaging with life, these seem universal.
Which ultimately underscores that grief is both deeply personal and profoundly shaped by culture. Understanding these dimensions allows for more inclusive, supportive approaches.
Exactly. Finally, let's turn our attention to the often deeply personal and significant spiritual dimension of grief.
Grief almost inevitably leads you to confront some of life's biggest spiritual questions, doesn't it? Meaning, purpose, connection, making sense of loss within your understanding of existence.
That persistent, often agonizing question, why? Why this? Why them? It's rarely just seeking a factual explanation.
It taps into that fundamental human need for a coherent narrative, for loss to somehow fit into a larger framework of meaning.
Traditional religious frameworks often offer established answers, divine will, tests of faith, karma, a predetermined plan. For many, these provide significant comfort, solace, helping locate suffering within a meaningful cosmic narrative.
But for others, including religious people in crisis and the non-religious, these traditional explanations can feel woefully inadequate,
Leading to significant spiritual struggle, questioning beliefs, feeling abandoned, losing faith in the foundations of their spiritual understanding.
Interestingly, as the video touches on, spiritual growth can often emerge from this very struggle. Many who grapple deeply report developing a deeper, more nuanced, often more personalized spirituality later on.
Faith tested by such profound questioning can become more authentic, resilient. For some, this leads away from traditional structures towards a more individualized spirituality, finding meaning in nature, human connection, other philosophies.
And the question of continuing bonds with the deceased, that's another key spiritual dimension.
Many traditions offer frameworks for how that connection might continue: ancestor veneration, communion of saints, reincarnation, often providing comfort that the relationship endures beyond physical separation.
These beliefs and practices offer solace, continuity, a way to maintain connection and integrate their memory. So, as we draw this deep dive to a close today,
We've truly journeyed through the multifaceted language of grief, haven't we? Exploring its intricate physical, emotional, social, cognitive, developmental, cultural, and spiritual dimensions, drawing on the insights from that Queen YouTube video.
and it's become so clear that grief is far more complex, more nuanced, more profound than those simplistic narratives of stages or linear recovery suggest. For me, there were so many aha moments, that deep interconnectedness of physical and emotional loss,
The profound influence of social and cultural context.
the actual cognitive rewiring, and that deeply personal, often spiritual quest for meaning.
And for you, our engaged and thoughtful learner, we sincerely hope this exploration has provided some valuable, perhaps surprising insights into this universal yet deeply individual human experience, offering a more comprehensive, compassionate understanding.
And so, for our final thought to leave you with today, I encourage you to consider the societal and cultural narratives around grief that you encounter in your own life, in your community. How might these narratives be subtly shaping your own understanding and experience of loss?
Or perhaps more importantly, your understanding and responses to the grief of others.
Maybe take some time to reflect on how we can all actively contribute to creating more genuinely supportive, compassionate, and understanding environments for those navigating the intricate, often overwhelming landscape of grief.